been such a long season, son. Over so quick, though. It's like at my age, the years get faster and faster. And they get so fast, I think you just spin off. I think that's what happens to us all. It gets faster and faster and faster, and you can no longer hold on. But yeah, long season, 24 races. I was thinking maybe we'll just do a look back episode. That work for you?
Mm-hmm.
All right, you ready to go, son?
I am ready to go.
Hello, welcome to Hard Compound American Take on Formula One. All 24 races are over in this 2024 season, the longest in F1 history. Also one of the best, at least one of the best in a decade. Patrick, I thought we could chat about the season, maybe do some of our favorite moments, not necessarily just those that happen on track. Why don't we start with maybe give me your top 10 drivers in order.
Ooh, top 10 drivers. I think there were a lot of great individual performances and then obviously some not so good ones. But it's hard to find guys who were exceptionally consistent throughout the year. But I think the one guy that was far and away the most consistent driver, the most determined, most competitive, and ultimately showed that he was the best driver was Max.
Yeah.
And very clearly deserving of his fourth drivers' championship. 4 drivers' championships.
I know, already.
Pretty amazing.
They do a team principal survey as well as a driver survey. And I'm sure they're mostly anonymous. Yeah, they all had Max at the top.
Yeah, I think that is no surprise. It is obviously not easy to win the drivers' championship, especially not when the constructors is so competitive as well. So he had a lot of fierce competition and ended up walking away with it with a few races left to go. So yeah, great season from him. Then I guess I got to go with Lando after that. I mean, he put up a really good fight. He did come P2 in the Drivers' Championship, and with that McLaren at his back, I mean, he really forced Max to be at his best, I think. So that was a lot of fun to see. I think Lando, for the most part, was pretty consistent throughout the season. I think he's got to look inward, and figure out what he has to do better in the future in order to kind of snatch that title away from Max. But,
right.
It was a good fight from him throughout the season, I think.
Right. This year was I think McLaren was a bit caught off guard by how good their car was, certainly since Miami.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also think this was just his year where it's like, look, you got to shed the self-doubt, figure out what you got to do to win, because Max is not going to let you win. You got to earn it.
Yeah, definitely. And then I guess to round out the top 3, I guess I have them in order of how they finished in the Drivers' Championship, but I have Leclerc.
Yeah.
I think he, again, also put up a pretty good fight. Ferrari was sort of almost felt in limbo for a lot of the season. First part of the season, they were second to Red Bull, it seemed. They just weren't quite as quick. And then the second half of the season, they were sort of second to McLaren. But, Leclerc came up big in a lot of moments. I think, after his big Monaco win, there was a bit of a letdown for a few races. But other than that kind of lull, I thought he was really good, kind of proved why Ferrari sort of chose him over Sainz, it seemed like. And just kind of near the end of the season, led that charge by Ferrari to see if they could end up on top. Didn't quite happen, but I think, overall had a really, really good season.
Yeah, Charles is just so quietly, consistently good. I mean, I think the asterisk on Leclerc is he's going to leave Ferrari with basically every record at Ferrari, except wins and championships, So that's a pretty loud asterisk.
Yeah, Yeah. We'll see, what his future holds. But I think so far in his young career, it's not like he's wanting for a whole lot. So, he can't be too disappointed, right?
Right. Right. Making millions of dollars living in Monaco, driving for Ferrari and F1.
Yeah.
Things could be
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Then, I think I'm going to go off the beaten path here for kind of the rest of my top 10, but I've got after those top 3 Hulkenberg.
Ooh.
I mean, if you look down the line, tell me who had a better season than Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
He's driving in that Haas. I mean, it is moderately competitive for the final points positions. And he kind of was that top point getter of those sort of teams, right? So he was very impressive. There's a reason, Audi wanted to sign him. I think he was just so clearly better than his teammate in K-Mag this season. I think he was far more consistent and really forced Alpine to have some miraculous final races to kind of leapfrog that Haas team into 6th place. So I think, honestly, I was looking at, all the drivers here, and I just think there's no one that I would confidently say, like, yes, they were consistently better than Hulkenberg this season.
I don't know if I would have him 4th, but I wouldn't argue against it. And if you go by the scale of performance, driver performance to car performance, he was tops.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that might get some flack, but I don't think the arguments that you could raise against him, I think are kind of so marginal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyways, moving on, I have Sainz actually rounding out my top 5. I think he had a really solid year, and quite frankly, a lot of this comes down to the fact that just before the season started, he was notified that he was getting booted. After that, I mean, it would be very easy, I think, to just kind of fuck off and not do anything. I don't care about that. Other teams know what I'm already capable of. My agent is probably talking to all of them. I don't know. I feel like it would be really hard to stay focused on the actual task at hand. And he ended up maybe a couple of points behind Piastri. And I think that McLaren consistently was better than the Ferrari. So I think Sainz had a really good season in kind of a tumultuous, sort of not really sure what's going to happen with my future air about his season.
I think, that must have just been such a hit to his pride, basically being fired from Ferrari, and then doubly hit when it was like no one really rushed to sign him, at least not to a long-term deal. No top team. But you're right. He was like, all right, I'll show you what I got. And he did. He fought, they almost won the constructor. He hung with Leclerc all year long.
And to be fair, he missed a race as well early on in the season. So, that's extra points that he wasn't able to get. After that, I have, I guess, the other Spaniard, Alonso. I mean, quite disappointing, I think, from his perspective and Aston's perspective to follow up such a great season last year with this one. But I mean, I don't know that there's anybody that has as much just sort of talent as Alonso does. And still, he's kind of proven that. I mean, look, he's gotten older and a little bit slower. I'm sure every race hurts his body so much more than it used to, but he's still kind of chugging along. And, he had 3 times as many points as his teammate Lance Stroll. He was P9 or something like that in the Drivers' Championship, just behind Perez, I think. I mean, what he was able to accomplish in, frankly, one of those lower mid-pack cars was quite impressive. I think he was a little bit less consistent. I think he seemed a little bit more frustrated at times and kind of got a little too aggressive or feisty. But overall throughout the season, I mean, I can't seem to find anybody that just proved their raw talent a whole lot better than he did.
Yeah, this was the first year in his multiple decades career in F1 where I think we saw a clear drop off. But he was in a bad car, bad team, and he brought it every race. I mean, you look at Lewis Hamilton in Mercedes. There were a couple races where I was like, Lewis is kind of, he's thinking about what he's going to do as a brand ambassador for Ferrari, But Alonso, every single race in that bad car. So yeah, sixth.
Yeah. Then I've got another guy who came on strong at the end of the season. I've got Pierre Gasly. Well, that Alpine was dismal for like 80% of the season. And the occasional times that he was actually doing well in a race, either his teammate crashed into him for some ungodly reason, or his car just sort of blew up and died. But he kept chugging along and ended up, getting some massive points, some really great results near the end of the season. And, I think we mentioned this in one of the last episodes, but was the only driver that did not cost his team any money in like vehicle repairs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just a really good, strong, consistent season. And once the car sort of got sorted out, he proved, how good he was.
That makes me think of Christian Horner because, people can talk and say trash about the Red Bull Academy and, Red Bull not using its drivers correctly, using the drivers in the sister team, Racing Bulls. But I mean, look at the talent on the current F1 grid that Christian Horner sort of shepherded into F1. I mean, Max, obviously, Liam Lawson, you mentioned Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, Yuki. These are solid F1 drivers that Horner has really gotten into F1.
Yeah, it is impressive. It's one of the premier sort of driver programs, it seems. We've seen a lot of talent come through that Red Bull program. Pierre Gasly, just another one of those guys. Then I guess, what is this? 8th? Well, I got to put Oscar up in here. Yeah, I mean, I think he had a really, really good season. I think he's still kind of young and sort of figuring it out a little bit, but he raced really well, raced Lando pretty hard. I think he still needs a little bit more consistency, but I will say that he showed more of that willingness to just do whatever it takes than seemingly anybody else on the McLaren team.
Yeah.
So I kind of expect him to kind of take the reins actually in the future of this team and really kind of tug them along. But this season, I think, he had some really good performances and then some where he just seemed a little bit lost, but overall, very solid season.
Well, and I mean, I think Lando definitely beat him this year, but I mean, this is his second season.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long season. Lando's been at McLaren for much longer. I mean, yeah. And he did well. He got a win. So,
couple.
Yeah, that's right. He got 2.
Then I've got, we'll say, George Russell. Again, similar to Oscar, actually. I think he had some really good performances and then some where you just go, yeah, that's George Russell. I don't know why he's doing that, but oh well. So, he beat out Lewis, but frankly, not by as much as I would have expected, given how lackadaisical and not sort of at the top of his game Lewis Hamilton was. I think George, he needs to sort out, his consistency issues and just make sure he's always driving to the best of his abilities. And then lastly, to round out the top 10, I am going to go with Yuki. I think he was quite good at the beginning of the season. I think he, really wanted to prove that he was, well, A, better than Ricciardo, and B, good enough to sit in that Red Bull.
Yeah.
Move up to the A team, so to speak. And I think he proved that at the beginning of the season. And then kind of halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, it became more and more evident that Red Bull, and really more specifically Helmut Marko, just didn't like him, didn't really care to have him in that seat. And I think he got frustrated, and his performances sort of lacked that consistency that some of the other drivers had. And he got a little bit more kind of fiery and frustrated, and ended up, I think, the end of the season was not, the best part of the season for him.
All right. I think the surprise here is Lewis Hamilton does not make your top 10. So you've got Max, Lando, Charles Leclerc, Nico Hülkenberg, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Pierre Gasly, Oscar Piastri, George Russell, Yuki Tsunoda. I don't disagree really with those. I might move them around just a bit, but yeah, it's surprising. And no Lewis Hamilton. We'll see what he does next year at Ferrari.
I don't know. I think Lewis just sort of dropped a bombshell on all of F1 at the beginning of the season, and then just decided, like, yeah, it's good enough. I mean, well, actually, no, he didn't decide that's good enough. He went and won frickin' Silverstone, and then was like, yeah, all right, I'm good now.
Yeah, I mean, this was we saw a clear drop off, I think, in Alonso in this year as well in Hamilton, although I think part of it, was there may have been a bit of a lack of focus. He's sort of split between two teams. I'll do a quick bottom 5. I think we got to go Logan Sargent. I mean, these drivers, it's like
in 24th out of 24.
Right. Hundredths of a second, tenths of a second. He's, in the seconds. So, I mean, he's a solid driver, but I'm not sure he belonged in F1. I got to go with, I hate to say it, Sergio Perez. Just such a good car. He just struggled so much to the point where we were like, man, look, it's not even good for him to keep him in that Red Bull. I heard the story, and I don't know if it's true, but speaking of Silverstone, the Red Bull engineers then sort of like went to, I think, Helmut and Christian, like, man, you got to get rid of this guy. And I was like, instead of me thinking, damn, the engineers are after Sergio, I was like, damn, I love what kind of a team Horner's put together. When you got the engineers like, this F1 driver, he's not good enough, that's a good team.
Yeah.
I'm going to go another veteran, 18 is with Bottas. I mean, he's been around for so long. I hear Mercedes has just signed him as a reserve. I mean, but he did nothing. He just didn't contribute, And there's just so many rookies, so many up and comers, there's even a handful of drivers in Indy that I think, could have done just as much. So give them a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about putting Lance Stroll, but actually I'm going to put Guan Yu Zhou in here. And he did finally manage to get some points for Sauber, but maybe it's another driver where it was like, you've had your time, you've had your chance. We've not seen anything that's good enough. And in the NFL, you've got these guys, they can be drafted in the first few rounds. They may not get to play in 1 year, maybe play a bit in second year, get cut in the third year. It's a tough sport, and F1 is like that. So I'd take Zhou, maybe put him at 17. And then 16, my bottom 5. I'm going to say Daniel Ricciardo. I don't think Red Bull gave him a send-off that he deserved, but I'm not sure he should have returned. Liam Lawson could have had a full year at Racing Bull. And, I think Daniel had a pretty quick decline there. And so I just don't think this, sort of like how this final year Red Bull is going to be, tarnish Sergio Perez's career. I think at Racing Bull that will do the same for Daniel. Oh, well. Some happier moments. I mean, when the year started, we thought, damn, Red Bull and Max are just going to win everything again. But it did not happen, especially by Miami. McLaren promised upgrades. They delivered. Lando won. From that point on, we had a good season. I mean, it came down to the final race to decide the constructors.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think, a surprising season overall at just how close it was at the top, both driver and constructor. It really has not been so close the last couple of seasons. And even when Max won his first driver's championship, the constructor championship had been wrapped up well before that when Mercedes won. So really, it hasn't been this close for a long time, and really all throughout the order. I mean, even 6th place in the constructors was up in the air until the final race of the season. So
yeah, a bit of Alpine pride there.
Yeah,
that was good. Speaking of races, a couple stand out to me. One Lewis Hamilton, as you mentioned, at Silverstone. I had predicted Lewis was never going to win another race again, and he won that one. So that was always great to see. Seeing Charles win Monaco, that was great.
And Ferrari win at Imola? Or no, it was Monza that they won at, I think. Yeah. I mean, those are always fun to see drivers either win their home race or a team win their home race. It is definitely a sight to see, especially in Italy, Ferrari, and they have the Tifosi, and everyone is just yelling the Italian national anthem as it plays. I mean, that's always fun to see.
Yeah. Let's see. Lando, that was Lando's first win this year. I was going to mention,
yeah.
Oscar got a first win, then second. Lando got a first win. And yeah, it seems surprising to me that it took this long for him to get that first win.
Yeah, I mean, McLaren had not been good enough, I think, for the last few seasons, but finally, figured it out and really put together the best car on the track for a large portion of the season. So that was definitely good to see.
Another one for me, I mean, I guess for everybody, was Max in Brazil in the rain. That was his Michael Jordan Game 6 race, where it was just like, people are going to talk about that one 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now,
Yeah, that was a crazy drive. Would he start P17, something like that?
Yeah.
Through the rain, multiple safety cars, and he just dominated. And then the two Alpines, I think, were the other two on the podium. I mean, what a weird and wild race coming down to the end of the season. And Max just, he showed his class. McLaren, Lando was closing in on him. People were saying, oh, Lando, he only needs 11 points or whatever it is each race to make up on Max. And Max shut that down and said, nope, I've won this.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
Another fun one. Where was it was it Montreal that George and Max had like the same time? And so because I think George did it first, he got pole?
Yes, I think it was there. That was kind of a crazy race too, yeah. I think, because Lando was winning at some point, and then there was like a weird safety car, and McLaren screwed up when they brought him in, and so Max and George passed him. That was also immediately after Leclerc's Monaco win, and he was just nowhere to be found the whole time. We thought, oh, yep, there's that curse. He won. He made a deal with the devil to win in Monaco, and now he's nowhere to be found. That was a fun race.
All right, switching to the soft compound, some big non-race moments, favorites. I mean, for me, Cadillac announces they're going to be joining F1 in 2026, as we predicted an 11th team, as we predicted an American team. But that was nice for it to actually happen. An American team, our true American team, is going to join F1.
Yeah, I think it was sort of inevitable. There was so much pushback from the Cadillac Andretti deal, and F1 kind of denying that for no reason at all. And, Cadillac kind of kept with it. Obviously, the Andrettis are no longer a part of that deal, but good to see Cadillac stick with it, GM stick with it, and push to become a constructor in 26 and ultimately start making their own power units and all that kind of thing by 2028. So will be awesome to see.
Yep. I mean, we talked the whole time doing this podcast about the rise of F1 in America and American money and fans jumping on board. So this is great to see. Also, shout out to the United States government. I mean, I don't follow NASCAR closely, but in NASCAR, the France family owns NASCAR. They own the name, they own the race, they own many of the circuits. The circuits they don't own, these good old boys have owned for generations. And they got a close relationship. So they set all the rules. And one of the top teams, run by Denny Hamlin, one of the top racers, co-owned by Michael Jordan, the NBA legend, they kind of pushed back on a lot of the rules, a lot of the requirements. And I was like, well, you can, but you have no leverage. The France family holds all the cards. But they had a wild card. They found a judge who was like, no, this looks monopolistic. And just the statement of some judge somewhere in America saying this looks like it could be monopolistic, boom, we start getting movement. The family's going to loosen the reins, maybe let the teams have a bit of a say. Kind of the same with the Cadillac thing. F1 has just been, good old boys in Europe. And they want all the American fans, the American streaming money, the American tech companies, the American sponsorships. Did not like Michael Andretti and were not eager, let's say, to have an American team. U.S., some bureaucracy, maybe it was the Department of Justice, I don't know. Federal Trade Commission, I don't know. Said maybe we should look into this. Bam. Cadillac's joining F1. How about that? So, hey, shout out to the United States government.
Yeah, I mean, it helps, right, that Liberty Media actually owns Formula One, right? Because they are actually beholden to some of those laws. So that was helpful. But yeah, I mean, kind of nice that there was some recourse, I guess, for that team.
Yeah, this isn't a favorite moment because to me, it's a sad moment. Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes. I mean, I thought he'd finish his career there. I think most people did. I think Toto did. I think Toto still feels a sense of betrayal. I think all these Lewis Hamilton fans spinning conspiracy theories about why George Russell beat him, or because, well, Toto's doing something behind the scenes. The team is doing something to Lewis Hamilton, which I want to believe just because I like conspiracy theories, but it's not true. But, that was shocking news. And him going to Ferrari, I mean, that's really big news.
Yeah, we got a lot of good driver drama this year, I think. And that is good to see. I like that. I think there needs to be more shock and awe from the drivers. They need to, I don't know, we need more craziness, more drama. I need more betrayal. I need more conspiracies. I need some pushing and shoving at some point.
Right.
In the garage. I need more engineers saying, nah, we gotta cut that driver. This is
right.
Unacceptable.
I love it.
Yeah. We need more. This year provided a lot. We need more.
We do. Well, and hey, look at Hollywood rushing in. This Brad Pitt movie. I mean, we talked about this movie for a year now. They're spending more. They could have the best ever F1 car in the history of F1 for how much they're spending on this dang movie. I also heard that Felicity Jones, she's sort of a hotter, younger version of Claire Williams. She's going to be playing a hotter, younger version of Claire Williams, the former team principal of Williams, in a series that Amazon is working on. So a sort of, the female team principal in F1. So, I mean, it being Hollywood, Amazon, we sort of know the story arc and the point of view. We've got to, we know what it's going to be. But still, that's Hollywood getting involved. So I'm kind of curious. Although slightly related, I saw that the production company that does Drive to Survive has spent the past year working on a behind-the-scenes show similar to Drive to Survive, but it covers SEC football, which the European mind simply cannot comprehend. I mean, college football in America, they simply cannot comprehend that millions will watch it every Saturday, that 100,000 people will show up every Saturday, that the fans are insane. So that's kind of, but a lot of this is just all, we're seeing just different types of media, types of coverage, types of influence. I mean, it's really been surprising to see. And I think this year, I don't know if it hasn't peaked. I really think of F1 as like the NFL in the 90s. Everyone thought it peaked then. It's like, no, it may have peaked in your interest, but as far as its cultural impact and money, it's going to get bigger.
Yeah, cameras are always on now. So I think we're going to get a lot of good content. And
right.
And I think, at some point, a lot of that will also dictate who is on the grid, right? I mean, if you're boring, you're probably not getting a seat I mean, it's already competitive, right? If you can't bring in an audience, if you can't, play up that team, then you're not going to be driving for us.
Oh, interesting. I mean, we had this long history in F1 of drivers getting a seat because they can bring in sponsors. Maybe this is the new thing, Patrick. Maybe you've hit on something where it's drivers getting a seat because they can bring in an audience. Actually, next year, this will be a great year to sort of see your thought in action. I mean, think of all the rookies, or the young drivers. Liam Lawson, he'll be in Red Bull now. He has less than a year experience. We'll have Kimi Antonelli. We'll have Doohan is there.
Mm-hmm.
Bortoleto, Isaac Hodger. I haven't seen him, I don't think, in F2. Red Bull, drives for Red Bull. They'll be putting him in Racing Bull, I believe. Colapinto has got a few races in, so he'll be on the sidelines trying to get in. This will be an interesting year next year.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be really, really quite interesting to see all those guys. We've seen some of them actually race in F1 already. So we'll see. I don't know. It'll be interesting. And I think, we keep talking about Lewis Hamilton as a Ferrari brand ambassador. I mean, he is currently the F1 influencer. So, there's got to be more guys out there that are capable of doing such. So, we'll see.
Across the line, that's the segment where we predict the top 5 for the next race. There is no next race. I don't know. What do we do for across the line here, Patrick? We've been talking about some fond memories and big ideas. What about some nastiness? I mean, Red Bull especially, all that nastiness. Jos Verstappen, Max's dad, going after everybody. Helmut Marko, the crazy old man at Red Bull, going after everybody. Always speaking his mind. That was good. I mean, Ricardo getting booted. Sergio Perez under the gun the whole year. Would Yuki make it? No.
I mean, at the very beginning of the year, there was a whole lawsuit or whatever against Christian Horner. I mean,
oh yeah,
there was some crazy shit going on at Red Bull, and then they came out the gates hot. They said, fuck all that. We're gonna take this to you.
Winning and they did so much. Yeah.
And they did. But McLaren fought back, and we had some clashes between Lando and Max as well.
Yeah.
There was some good fighting there. And Max was happy to not back down. And Lando was a little bit meek in comparison.
Yeah.
So I am looking forward to future just aggressive, angry fights. Maybe, fights in the cool down room or whatever they call it.
Yeah, we want to see that.
Look, you know what I'm trying to see? Have you seen, forget what it's called, like car jujitsu or whatever? It's stupid. There's 2 guys sitting in the front seats of a car, buckled in, and then, they go, and you basically have to stop the other person from unbuckling their seatbelt and then choke them out. Anyways. This just came into my head.
This is why we need wars, Patrick, because without wars, men will make up just the ridiculous shit.
It is ridiculous, but it made me think, because you know how the cool down room for the Vegas race is the back of a Rolls Royce. Just imagine the hate if 2 guys are battling it out for the title. They've clashed. They're on the podium and they're sitting in the back of this Rolls Royce. I mean, I'm just waiting for somebody to pop the other one. This is what I need to see.
Funny. I don't know why I thought of this, but this was old school F1 where Haas, where were they stuck? Team, was it, I think I wrote it down, the Netherlands. They hadn't paid their bills. They owed somebody something.
That's right.
Will Haas be at the next race? I'm like, that's awesome.
Well, it was
the Gene's not paying his bills.
The whole Uralkali sponsor, because they got rid of Mazepin.
Oh,
when Russia invaded Ukraine, the whole deal. And then Uralkali was like, you owe us $2 million fucking dollars.
Right.
Like, what are you
And
doing?
he completely did.
And then, some Dutch judge was like, yeah, you gotta pay him. I don't know what you're doing, but like, you ain't leaving until you pay. What a ridiculous thing Haas gets itself into every year.
Any crazy predictions, Patrick, for 2025 or anything?
Ooh, so I was thinking about this earlier because obviously you got the news that GM Cadillac will be joining the grid in a couple seasons, but Ford will be joining Red Bull basically as a power unit developer in combination with the Red Bull team. But I think that's not going to be enough for Ford. I think they're going to think, oh shit, GM is getting in on F1. Audi purchased the Sauber team. They're getting in on F1. Toyota is now making a play with Haas. They're getting in on F1 a little bit. We can't be lagging behind all of our competitors, so they're not going to be satisfied with just working on electric power units for Red Bull. I think they're going to make a play to purchase the Red Bull team and become a full-time F1 constructor, Ford Motorsport team.
That would be huge. I mean, Horner's been doing this for 20 plus years now. I mean, I think you could see in Helmut just, what is he, 80, 90? I don't know what he is, but you could see that old guard still hanging on. But when they leave, Red Bull might be receptive to this.
Well, I think because the owner, died a couple of years ago, right. They're kind of in a little bit of uncertainty, not sure about Horner, not sure about Helmut Marko. The team faltered a little bit this season. There's all that turmoil. I mean, I can see.
Yeah, and Max is he always driven in Honda? I don't know, but he might have, which means...
I think he was still there when they were partnered with Renault.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yep. But I mean, he might just leave because I know Honda's going to team with Aston, so you never know. That's a good one. I've got a good one. I mean, we saw Lewis falter a bit this year. He's jumping to Ferrari. He's going to make a ton of money. He's going to make Michael Schumacher money. He's going to, try to reach for billionaire status. One of those rare athletes that gets $1 billion in earnings and sponsorship. There's only a handful of them. But I think once that's set in, he's going to bolt because, he's lost a step. So my big prediction is Lewis will only race 1 year at Ferrari. He will leave. They will bring back Carlos Sainz from Williams.
Wow. Bring back Carlos Sainz. That would be ridiculous.
All right. I would thank you all for listening to everybody's most beloved father and son F1 podcast. It is much appreciated. And we are lights out.
See ya. Thanks for listening.
You just finished listening to Hard Compound, recorded in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and around the world.